In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was love, God's unifying love, bursting forth, flaring forth, creating all that ever has been, is, will ever be. And God saw that it was good, is good, will always be good. Bits of creation coming together, joining together to create new things, splitting and uniting anew, not just in the presence of God's love, but as expressions, incarnations of God's love. The whole of creation, God incarnate. From the beginning to the birth of earth, our home, a new incarnation of God's love. In humanity, in Jesus, a continuous story of love flaring in creation, in us.
And then a new flaring of this grace in a small city in the French mountains in 1650. Our story, alive with possibility. 6 women and a Jesuit missionary envision and live a new form of religious life. Religious, but not cloistered. Rather, they are in the streets with their neighbors in a time of great social inequity and need. Like their neighbors, they support themselves by making lace. Father Madiah wrote that the sisters were invited to contemplate God, whose love is inclusive, self-emptying, and permeates all creation, and to reach out to every kind of dear neighbor with a love that unites them with God and with one another.
Here are Madiah's words. Here, our dear sister, is the purpose of our selfless congregation. It tends to achieve this total double union of ourselves and the dear neighbor with God, and of ourselves and all others, whoever they may be, and of all others among themselves and with us, but totally in Jesus and in God his Father.
In the turmoil of the French Revolution, the sisters suffer with their neighbors, face the guillotine, and ultimately are disbanded, separated, scattered. Still, the flame endures in the hearts and minds of the sisters. Then, in God's grace, the flare widens again. Sisters, agrégées, the women of the confraternities, regather in Le Puy and in the towns and hills around the city. And in Lyon, through the guidance of Mother St. John Fontbonne. Under Napoleon, religious communities and ministries become institutionalized. The community's service expands as needs for education and health care grow. In 1836, the creative fire flares anew. Invited by the Bishop of St. Louis, Mother St. John sends sisters to the United States. Sparks fly, falling afar, igniting ever-expanding circles of God's inclusive love. After a long sea voyage, the pilgrims land in New Orleans and travel to Carondelet, Missouri, where they live like their neighbors and minister to them. From Carondelet, new foundations begin in many dioceses.
A cherished flaring that we now recognize as homecoming welcomes the Sisters of St. Joseph to Boston to respond to the call for the education of children and the integration of the immigrant Catholic population, having left their home in Flushing, New York, to settle in the Jamaica Plain neighborhood of Boston. 4 sisters offer simple, dedicated lives of presence with enormous energy for the mission. Now the flare takes on new colors and another burst of energy is expressed through the early part of this century. Settling in, making home, birthing the first ministries, education, and social services, responding to the need for nurses in the 1918 flu, sharing community life, praying together, strengthening one another for mission.
The Flair intensifies with growth and focus. With the 1918 Code of Canon Law, life becomes more regularized and somewhat more cloistered. Still, the charism expressed in the lives of the sisters draws many new members, and the schools increase rapidly. Education from kindergarten to college includes the arts and the sciences, all the standard curriculum, and of course, classes in the Palmer method. Sisters collaborate with other religious to develop curriculums and textbooks. Others offer leadership and formation, healthcare, and the daily care for the community. The flaring energy takes us beyond our local borders to California, New Mexico, and then to Peru, widening our understanding of who our dear neighbors are and helping us all to understand what we hold in common and how unique we all are.
Unifying love bursts forth in a new and extraordinary flare when Pope John XXIII calls the whole Church to open wide the windows on the world. The invitation is to immerse ourselves in the world, to live among our dear neighbors, to respond to those in need. Our windows are also opened. There are new ministries, new forms of community life, new ways of praying, new liturgical experiences, new formation experiences, new ways to be among and serve our dear neighbors.
Alongside a continuing commitment to education, new ministries flare as we relate to dear neighbors of every kind and respond to ever more complex political and social problems.
Throughout these years, we experience an expanding sense of our own identity as Sisters of St. Joseph of Boston. As we join with lay partners, all of us together strengthening one another's capacity for the mission, learning together how to care for one another, and joining in the service of our dear neighbors.
An astounding flare of love unites us with Sisters of St. Joseph in the United States and then around the world. We discover anew the breadth of the gift that has been given from the beginning. This charism and purpose we share, the vitality of this CSSJ family. We unite in the Federation and strengthen one another's religious life. We join together in initial and ongoing formation programs. Federation Novitiate, Gathering the Daughters, the Life programs. We are members of the UN NGO. We work together to combat trafficking, racism, bigotry, and many other issues to realize God's dream of inclusive love. Together with Sisters of St. Joseph around the world, we open the International Center in Le Puy. Sisters and lay partners from many countries become pilgrims to the place of our birth, experiencing the founding spirit, and we are energized for the challenges of the present moment.
In these later days, we have experienced few women entering the vowed life in community and the daily realities of an aging community. The flare in the hearts of our older and less well sisters is warmth and energy for all of us. Their prayer a source of grace and courage. We celebrate their lives with gratitude and affection. Meanwhile, Unifying love continues to flare anew. We are companioned by committed women and men who are gifted with the charism for this moment, associates and agrégés, partners in the sponsored and congregation ministries, partners of all kinds, donors, former members, partners in justice, CSSJs, and religious of other communities. And in turn, we become partners in the efforts of others in Brighton, Alston, Roslindale, Framingham, throughout Massachusetts and beyond, with Catholic charities and parishes assisting new immigrants, with those advocating for imprisoned women, and people focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The flare of God's love widens and intensifies and takes on brightness as all this spills over into the works of justice, into which we pour our humble efforts. Together, we are faithful to our corporate stands on behalf of the earth and against nuclear arms. We stand for unity and the dignity of each person, for peace and against racism and human trafficking, for immigrants, safe communities, just laws, health care, and education for all. We unite with Pope Francis and many religious communities, and many people who realize the goals of Laudato Si, responding to Earth, our home, and her creatures. We know that unifying love, serving the dear neighbor without distinction, demands this of us, the community of Joseph. We share an intrepid spirit that impels us to live the mission now.
150 years after our founding in Boston, on the edge of a new flaring. What graces will a new flare of unifying love carry for us all? To what newness will we all be invited? To what fidelity? To what deeper and wider awareness? To what spiritual deepening?
For what will we pray? What will we ask of one another? What will we dare? Where will our contemplation and discernment lead us?